You.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you, my friends, for joining us this evening. What a beautiful opportunity to be together with you, and what a beautiful platform. I want to thank the ladies in charge for putting this together, and again, the opportunity to be able to learn together, which is always so beautiful. I'm going to ask Lauren if you can actually share the notes. I've failed to find the direction as to how I can share the actual document, and then we will progress together. Alternatively, we can just talk and I'll work you through the notes together as well. Okay, you've got it there. Wonderful. So let's explore together. Let's try and understand what this very enigmatic festival is about. We see that this festival isn't in fact mentioned in the Torah itself. The first time that it's mentioned is in the Mishnah. And the Mishnah in Rosh Hashana tells us that there are a number of different forms of Rosh Hashana. There are different forms of the new year. So we classically know the new year, Rosh Hashana, as a time of judgment, as a time to really connect and see how we are going to experience the year ahead. But the Mishnah tells us that there's another Rosh Hashanah, along with many others, but the particular one that we're going to focus on tonight in order to connect to ourselves, in order to connect to Hashem, in order to connect to a deeper part of reality, is the festival referred to as bShvat. So Tu, we know, is the 15th. bShvat is the month of Shvat. And we are told that bShvat is the Rosh Hashanah le'ilanot. It's the Rosh Hashanah, it's the head of the year for trees. And I want to know, what does that mean? What does it mean to have the head of the year for trees? You know, do the trees all have to dip apples in honey? Or is that just the apple tree? What's going on here that this is the head of the year for the trees? Now, let me put it over to you. Is anyone able to give us some insight here? What is your understanding that this is the head of the tree, the head of the year for the trees? Anyone have an understanding of what this means and can give us some insight before we continue? You can put up your hands if you feel like you would like to do so. If not, we continue. We continue, and at any time, please interrupt me and give us your insight. But let's understand the following. The deeper, okay, we have Mr. Mostert. Mr. Mostert, please share with us, what is your insight here as to what it means that this is the head of the year for trees?
Okay. Good evening, everybody. The little that I know, it is usually when it is determined whether fruit are orla fruit or I think it is orla and Rabi fruit, third year and fourth year fruit is usually determined by during this time to bShvat, the year of the tree, and also the age of the trees.
Lovely. Thank you for that, Jeremy. Beautiful. So simply speaking, if we were looking at this ostensibly, it seems that the head of the year, bShvat, is a calendar year. It is a way of calculating the age of trees, the way of calculating the time frame in which trees have been in existence, in order to then calculate other forms of halachic responsibilities such as orla, etc., etc. Now, it sounds a little bit detached. Sounds detached to us. And furthermore, why did we need to complicate it? You know, Judaism seems already so complicated. Why don't we just say there's one new year? Why don't we just start counting from Rosh Hashanah? We'll make it easy. One new year, and that's all it is. So I want to share with you the Kabbalistic approach. I want to share with you a very deep approach. And understandably, we start off from the Torah. And the Torah tells us in a verse in Deuteronomy that it says, Ki Adam eitz hasadeh. Humanity are analogous to a tree. This verse, or these words that tell us that man is analogous to a tree, is very uniquely positioned in quite, again, an enigmatic law. Does anyone know which law these particular words are positioned in? The Torah tells us about the law of conquest. When a person comes to wage war, it says that if they wage war and they conquer a city and they find within the city a fruit tree, they must not, under any circumstances, destroy the tree, because man is likened to the tree of a field. Okay, interesting. Why out of all places do we find this analogy or find this comparison that man is like the tree of a field? Let's try and understand this. So on a deeper level, we all have potentially experienced the verses in Psalms where King David likens an individual to a tree planted beside streams of water. As we unfortunately mention this at a consecration, and God forbid engage with states of mourning where we juxtapose those who are of a righteous status to those who are of a detached status. And the Psalms refers to a righteous individual as a tree planted beside streams of water. And what does it say? It says that this tree provides fruit. What does it mean that it provides fruit? Be'itoy means in its time, in its right time. And the foliage of that tree never fades. What does it mean that the foliage never fades? And whatever the produce comes out, thrives. So before we analyze this verse in Psalms, what we are gathering here is that we as human beings are referred to as a tree. And like a tree, we have an option. Where do we receive our sustenance? How reliable is our sustenance? Are we planted beside streams of water? Or do we have to search for that water in the deserts? Does our tree provide fruit? And not only does it provide fruit in its right time? Meaning, does the fruit come to a state of fruition in which one is able to consume the fruit in its ripe state? I've got an avocado tree, Baruch Hashem, it's a very big blessing to have an avocado tree. And the avocados are now the tree is producing avocados, but all the avocados, they're way too small. And for some reason, they're falling. They're all falling down. And to consume those avocados, they're too small. So it's producing fruit seemingly in its wrong time. So to produce fruit and experience that fruit, as well as being sourced in a space of sustenance that is reliable and continuous. The Netzach Yisrael, which is this third source, gives us this understanding in ourselves and really starts to paint the picture for us what this festival of bShvat is, what this Rosh Hashana Li'ilanot is telling us. And essentially what we are creating here is an understanding that Judaism is not just there to tell us, hey, this is the way you need to engage with trees, and this is the date in which you have to start to count them. And these are the halachic variables that approach one's interaction with the tree and with the fruit. Rather, what we're seeing here is that every single one of us needs to understand ourselves within the analogy of a tree. And just like Rosh Hashana is the beginning of our year, we have to understand that there is a period of time in our lives where we have the capability to create direction for, number one, where we glean our energy and our sustenance from, and number two, how we pull that sustenance and energy through into a state of fruition that is nutritious, that is beautiful, that is something that we can be proud of. So this is the space that we're understanding. And the Kabbalists bring down the following concept. The concept of Rosh. What is a Rosh in Hebrew? A Rosh in Hebrew is a head. I can see Viv pointing to a head. Very good, Viv. The concept of a Rosh is one's head. Now we understand that the energy of one's head is the hierarchical value of oneself. That if one was to be rolling around and their head was not always upright and they're, in a state of confusion, or if a person is in a really sullied state, God forbid, or they're really confused, their head starts to lose its balance. It doesn't know its hierarchical space. What the Kabbalists bring down is Rosh Hashana Lilanot is coming along to say to us, every single one of us, we are trees. And just like King David in Psalms refers to a tree and juxtaposes it with the chaff of the field, every single one of us wants to experience stability in life. We want to experience a healthy flow of energy in our lives. We want to experience fruition in our lives. And these are the energy forces that we are acclimatizing ourselves or sensitizing ourselves through this period of time that is referred to as the Rosh Hashana Le'ilanot. It's not this cute time to go buy figs, cute time to go and eat pomegranates and, engage with drinking wine. It's a great time to do all of those things. But at a deeper level, it is a time of recalibration as to where our root system is based in and how strong we are in that space of gleaning energy and allowing it to flow through our lives into the fruit of our existence. So what the Netzach Yisrael here is the Maharal. And the Maharal tells us, let's get one of our readers. We had so many who have given us a potential space. Can I choose here, Viv? Or would you like to choose?
No, go for it. You're welcome to start, and then we'll pick up if we need to.
I think Barbara, she was the first here. So we'll give Barbara the opportunity, if you don't mind, Barbara, and you're still with us and you haven't fallen asleep yet. Barbara, if you can please read for us the Netzach Yisrael, this third source that we provided.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
My only problem is that the type is too small.
So Bob's, it's as big as I can make it on my screen. You need to make it big on your screen.
It is difficult. It's very small on my screen as well. But if anyone is able to see the wording, let's not get lost in the... I
can read it, Rabbi.
Okay, go for it. Thank you. For truly. Go for it, Jacqueline. With Barbara's permission.
Yeah, with my permission.
Is that better? I'm just trying to make it bigger, trying to find a way.
Yeah, that's a little bit better.
Yeah.
Let's read it because we want to utilize our time here together. So I'm going to read it for you. Okay. For truly, man is called a tree of the field. And as it is written, we've quoted this already in Deuteronomy. For man is a tree of the field, except that he is an inverted tree. Now, this is an unbelievable concept. And this concept is brought down by the Kabbalists. There's a reference to Yitzchak. I'm sure you know the story of Yitzchak, our forefather, who is first met with his wife, Rivka, who is traveling on a camel. Now, what does it say that Rivka does when she sees her future husband? Does anyone know what happens to her while she's on the camel?
I think if I'm not mistaken, I think she falls off.
Yes, she falls off. Not a very good thing to do on a first date, hey? So she falls off her camel, and the Kabbalists tell us a secret as to why. The Kabbalists tell us, you know why she fell off her camel? Because when she saw Yitzchak, a prospective husband, she saw him walking on his head. She saw him walking upside down. What What on earth was he doing walking upside down? Was he a yogi or something? Is this some yogic stance of allowing the blood flow? It's very healthy to stand on your head. It allows the blood to flow in your body and recirculate. What was he doing? So the Kabbalists tell us that after his sacrifice or near sacrifice by Abraham Avinu, it says that his soul actually left his body and his soul eventuated into the world to come. And in the world to come, the space of existence, the archetypal source of energy is the world to come. It's the place that everyone exists in. Now, where is the root system of a human being? If one was to ask you, where is your root system? What does your root system look like? Now, what we don't really know, and maybe you do know this, is your root system is actually your hair. That's why there are a lot of laws associated with hair, by the way, in Judaism. The covering of hair for a married woman, because the source of flow of energy is so powerful into the world and into a home through the energy force of a woman. That needs to be concealed to retain the blessing, the flow of that energy. We see many laws associated with cutting hair during periods of time, such as the Sfirat HaOmer. We know we don't touch the hair. You're not allowed to cut the hair during that period of time. Why not? Because we don't want to mess with the flow of energy in these spaces. What we see is that when Yitzchak was in the ultimate space of existence in the world to come, so to speak, his soul sensed that this was the place, so he started walking on his head. The root system wanted to embed itself into the ground, so to speak, of the world to come. When he came back to this world, he forgot how to walk normally. That's what the Kabbalists bring down, okay? So just a cute understanding or an interesting space. But the Maharal tells us on a very personal level for every single one of us that our soul, as we see here, our root, is found in our soul. Since the soul is his root and it is from heaven, the hands are the branches of the tree, the legs are the branches upon the branches, and the body is the main part of the tree. Why is it an inverted tree? Because the tree derives its sustenance from the earth, while man draws the sustenance of his soul from heaven. The entire concept of the connection with the planting is to demonstrate the adhesion with the blessed name, which is the strength and power of man. Now, listen to this. I'm sure you recall the context of this reference to man being analogous to a tree, or a tree being analogous to a man. And that we mentioned initially was in reference to the law surrounding the conquest of a city. I'm sure you recall that. Now listen to how the Maharal gives us context to this particular law. Listen to what he says. For the city does not generate strength. Rather, the connection and planting with the blessed name is what causes strength. Understand the following, that it is not the conquest of the city. It is not the conquest of the city that is what represents strength. A person looks at their life and says, do you know how I reach stability in my life? Conquest. The more homes I own, the more money I have, the more I have under my feet, the more stability I have. No. The verse comes along to tell us, wedged within the conquest of cities is, don't forget that the tree is analogous to a man and a man is analogous to a tree. And understand that you are an inverted tree. And no matter how much money you have and how much conquest you have, if your root system is not rooted within the realms of the soul, if your root system is not rooted within the realms of your essence, it is impossible to experience stability. It is impossible to reach a state of true satiation. And it is impossible to experience the space of fruition that you are looking for. You will constantly look for more and more and more and more fruit. It's not for naught. It's not for naught that the catalyst of our entire existence within confusion was the tree of knowledge of good and evil. That we ate from an erroneous fruit, that we ate from an erroneous tree. And the question that bShvat comes to ask is, what tree are we eating from? Where is our root system? How do we experience the flow of energy? Is our flow of energy from Netflix? Is our flow of energy from social media? Is our flow of energy dependent on something external or exterior? Or do we have a vitality that is intrinsic to us based on our root system, which goes deep within? Now, many people question and say, well, how do you do that? What are you meant to do? How are you meant to create a system that isn't dependent on the externalities? You know, I live my life. How do I live my life? Well, I find energy from my, my surrounds. I love to see family, and I love to eat food, and I love to go travel, and I love to experience, different experiences and entertainment. Those are the things that give me energy. Now, we're not saying those are the things that shouldn't give you energy. Those things are beautiful, and we're created to enjoy the world. The question is if that's your root system. The question is that where you have premised your entire growth and existence from. And if the answer is a resounding yes, it's a very scary recognition and revelation within that. So the Kabbalist Rav Ashlig, otherwise known as the Birkas Shalom, teaches us a very, very deep secret. And if I can ask, Lauren, if you can go to the final source that we have presented here. Now, I'm about to present to you a Mishnah. Before I present this Mishnah, which is going to give us the antidote or the key for which to discern where our root system is based in and what the energy flow of our life is and how to create stability. Are there any questions? Does anyone have any questions, comments, insights they would like to share so far?
I have a comment.
Yes.
But I don't think you're going to like my comment. But it's my comment.
Can I premise your comment?
So can I give a comment?
But I do. I want to premise your comment with a comment. I will always like your comment because this is a space for us to investigate and be real and experience together. So please, Hilda, share with us your comment.
Right. So first of all, talking about Isaac, he never came across in the Torah at all as a strong personality. He was like a bridge, really, between Abraham and Jacob and so on. Right. Now, my theory, my feeling, when I read the Torah, I look at people as they are today, because people are people. So I reckon this. When Rebecca was on that camel and she fell off it, remember that she had been introduced to Eliezer. Eliezer was the one who was taking her through to meet her husband. And Eliezer, from what I can understand, was a very smart, maybe good-looking, and very intelligent man. That's why Abram sent him. And now she's got this in her head, she's got this image. Oh, well, her husband's going to be something like Eliezer. Now she's driving, and then she sees, well, you say that in the Kabbalah, they say he was standing on his head. Well, he was wandering around. He was wandering around. Maybe he was short, maybe he was pimply, God knows what. I think she got a hell of a, excuse me for saying hello, I think she got a shock when she saw him. And she said, oh my God, is this my husband? And I think that's why she fell off the camel.
Thank you.
That's my experience. The other thing I would like to add, if I may, I don't necessarily agree with you that the head is the source of energy. I don't believe that. I think the solar plexus is the source of energy, not the head.
Hilda,
the head can analyze things, but it's not your source of energy. All right. So I must speak. Lahagid Od.
Thank you, Hilda, and we appreciate your comments very deeply, and to engage with them briefly, because I think they deserve to be engaged. Number one, none of this is coming from me. This is coming from our Jewish traditions, and this is coming from the traditions of Kabbalah. Now, the traditions of Kabbalah create a sense or a depth of understanding which allows one to reach beyond the surface. And where we refer to Yitzchak, and we look at the energy behind the forefathers, when we refer to Yitzchak, Yitzchak is the epitome of strength. Now, ostensibly, one looks at the stories that are brought down in the Torah, and it seems that he lacks strength. It seems that he has an inability to stand up for himself. But what we have to understand, if we look at the patterns within the Torah, which is what Kabbalah is able to reveal to us, is that the apex of strength is not found necessarily within your physical physique. Just putting that parenthetically, he was of he was of an extremely significantly strong nature, as we are told that he planted fields upon fields in some of the most arid climates and some of the most difficult environments. And he persisted in some of the most difficult terrains. And nevertheless, through all of his tenacity, he was able to be of an untold success. So there are many, many references. I just brought you one to his physical prowess and strength. But Hilda, I'm sure you would appreciate the following. The Torah is not only here to tell us about physical strength. What we are more interested in is about our inner strength, our emotional strength, our spiritual strength, our holistic strength, and the inner resolve and the inner stability that a person needs to experience in life. And the Kabbalists reveal that the greatest strength that Yitzchak had was when he was presented with the test of fighting back against his father. He didn't want to die. And he was so strong that he could have easily overcome his father. And the energy inside of him was saying, live, live, live. But the Mishnah tells us, Ezu Gibor, who is one that is strong? Not one who has muscles and not one who can overcome on a physical level, which Yitzchak had as well. But it tells us who is strong, one who can overcome on an internal level. And the rabbis tell us that was his ultimate revelation of strength, and that he was able to overcome his inner inclination to fight back against his father, Abraham. That's one thing on a parenthetical level. I appreciate your potential insights, but what I think is very much encouraged is to look beyond the surface. We have to understand that the Torah is endlessly deep and replete with levels of understanding. And the purpose of Kabbalah is to reveal the deeper spiritual relevance in the stories and in the teachings, and not just the historical understanding on a potentially superficial level. Now, when we talk about a person's strength, I ask you this. If a person has a strong body and their solar plexus and their core, which is of a extremely primary nature in terms of a healthy body. And we all know that we need to work on our core, do our sit-ups, you can do your plank. You know, it's something I work on, but I can definitely work on more. If one's mind is not in check, if one has what we refer to as chalisha sadas, which means a feeling of lowliness, a feeling of despondency, a feeling of confusion, no matter how strong you physically are, that body will collapse. And what we are trying to understand here as human beings, as much as society is focusing on the body to create stability, as much as society is saying, go and do your Pilates and go and cut out whatever you want from your diet and go and eat more protein to create a healthy and strong body, which Judaism is not of any negative framework towards. We definitely see an important and responsible nature to one's health. and an obligation towards one's physical health. What we are here to investigate is our inner health, our homeostasis, as we call it, our inner space of holistic wisdom, clarity, connectivity, spiritual flow. And when you have that as a human being, nothing can shake you. Internally, no matter what happens, even on a physical nature, there is a space of connectivity that nothing can shake a person. Now, let's try and understand in this final Mishnah together, what are the secrets? So I'm going to peel off some of the secrets of this Mishnah for us, and we'll give you a beautiful Hilda, as we so appreciated your input here today or tonight. We're going to see how a Mishnah, or the teachings of Torah, as the Kabbalists reveal, there's always 4 levels of understanding what we refer to as paradise. Paradise means the orchard. And the orchard has 4 levels of delving into the secrets of what is involved within the teaching. And paradise, many say this is where the word paradise comes from, because when you experience the depth of Torah, you experience a paradise. Paradise stands for pshat, which means the superficial understanding. Remez is the next letter, resh. Pei, resh. Resh stands for remez, the hinted states. Then comes the letter daled, which represents drash, the expounded energies within the teachings of the Torah. And then the final one is a samech, which represents soid. Soid represents the secrets. So I want to reveal, if with your permission, some secrets behind this Mishnah that is able to give us some context for our existence and how we could potentially create a stable structure. What's the time now? Okay, let's have a look. So the Mishnah says to us, Mezablin, and I promise you, from an initial get-go, we're going to read this Mishnah, and I'm going to say, what? How is this of any relevance? So the Mishnah tells us, this is a Mishnah in Shvius, it tells us the following. Mezavlin ma'adrin b'mikshois u'midlois ad Rosh Hashana. It says that a person is allowed to put manure, they're allowed to place manure around on their plantations, and they can dig holes around their cucumbers and gourds until this particular Rosh Hashana, as we're referring to as bShvat. Okay, interesting. So we've got the act of placing manure, and then the second act of digging a hole. All right, fine, 2 acts. V'chein beis hashulchan, hashlachin, sorry, so too with regard to irrigated fields. Then it says, meyablin, mefarkin, me'abkin, me'ashnin. Okay, if you are able to follow those, we're not going to go beyond those. The next steps were, number 1, meyablin. Meyablin means you would cut off any flaws from the tree, so you would prune off certain elements of the tree. Mefarkin, you would be able to strip off leaves, so you would be able to lighten the load. We planted a beautiful plantation in our garden in the shul. It's referred to as the Eden Garden. And one of the trees there was a guava tree. And this beautiful, immature tree started to get very excited about its new context, and it started to grow lots of fruit. And you know what ended up happening? It ended up breaking. Part of the tree broke under the load. It wasn't ready to carry the amount of fruit and foliage that it had. So sometimes they would need to strip off the leaves off a tree. And then ma'abkin. Ma'abkin means they can cover the roots with earth. So sometimes the root sticks itself out of the earth. You're allowed to place soil back over the root. And finally, ma'ashnin. Yeah, ma'ashnin is from the word ashan, which means smoke. They essentially wouldn't have different forms of fumigation or insecticide, whatever they would do. What they would do is they would light a fire with some type of material or entity that would smoke up, and that smoke would be problematic for the worms and the insects in the tree, and that is allowed. You're allowed to fumigate a plant. Okay, this is all allowed. And that is the Mishnah I want to deal with you in this final few moments that we have together. So if I can ask, Lauren, if you don't mind to just go down to the final part of this source, we can have a look together, the progression according to Kabbalah. So as we mentioned here, we have six steps. And what Rav Ashlag reveals to us, Kabbalist Rav Ashlag, is that these 6 steps are in fact a preparation that you are allowed to engage with to make sure that your tree is intact and is in a healthy way connected to your Rosh, in a healthy way connected to your root system of spiritual energy. Are you ready for this? Okay, any comments? I enjoyed Hilda's comment so much. I want another comment. But Hilda, even though I enjoyed your comment so much, we need to give someone else a turn as well. But let's see if anyone has another comment.
Rabbi, can I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
So basically, we often are working on more on our physical and health and on diets and everything like that. So I think to nurture the tree, we obviously have to work on our character, and it's like a it's easy to work on all the bigger aspects, but we first need to nurture our own character and streamline our good character, work on having a good character in order to grow the tree and advance on a spiritual level.
Exactly.
A misunderstanding.
That's exactly the understanding. And what I would posit here is this is the bigger thing. Once we've worked on this inner flow of energy, everything else falls into place. Once your calibration on an internal level is in check, now obviously you need a healthy body, and obviously you need to work on your sleep and your diet and your engagement with physical activity and your connection with people around you. These are all obvious energy forces that our body feels settled and our nefesh feels settled. But on top of that, one of the most fundamental frameworks is this space of where do you glean your essential energy force from? Is it dependent on externality, or is it independent of externality? Because if it's dependent on externality, I promise you one thing: the external world is something that is of a constant shift and constant change. It is impossible to retain the external world in the space that you want it or deem it to be. And if your entire premise of energy is the perfection of your external world and everything working out the exact way that you want it to be and always dream it to be, then you're in for many, many surprises, unfortunately. And I bless every single one of us that we should have, so much blessing and so much consistency and so much beauty in our external worlds. But the bigger blessing, on top of the previous blessing, is to have internality and to have connectivity and to work on our character. And what this is about to show us is the steps that the Kabbalists reveal to us, which we can really hone into leading up to bShvat, really hone into this energy force of calibration of our source of energy and our flow of energy. So have a look at this. The first one is mezavlin. Mezavlin comes from the word zevel. Any Hebrew speakers here can tell us what zevel means? Hilda, I know you can tell us. I'm going to let you tell us, Hilda.
Zevel is dirt.
Yes, Gavaldik. Very good. Dirt. The dirt. And if you think about it, what is manure? Manure is dirt. You're taking, rotten entities. You're taking sometimes, some non-polite entities that have been excreted. And these are the sources of energy. Zevel. What? So listen to what Rav Ashlag says. The first step is to recognize your zevel. The first step is to recognize where is your rubbish. And what is rubbish? We all got rubbish. All of us have rubbish. Most of us, maybe not most of us, a lot of us ignore our rubbish. A lot of us create excuses for our rubbish. But to recognize that there is rubbish, and to recognize that we have pain, and to recognize that we have aspects of ourselves which aren't so in check and not so pleasant to the smell, so to speak, is the first step. But what is so beautiful about this is that that is the source of energy for a tree and its root system. That when you start to have the ability to look at your mistakes and your rubbish and the egoic blockages of self and the spaces of pain that you may be experiencing in your life, be it in relationships, be it in non-actualized self, be it in certain aspects of self that start to really create a smell on a spiritual level around you. And you look at them and you say, sure, some rubbish there. There's some zevel there. Let me investigate. Let me sit with it. Let me understand and glean and understand what is blocked inside of me, that I'm able to take that nutritious energy and redirect it. See where I can heal in those spaces. That's the first step. First step is to see the rubbish. Allow it to be placed around the tree. That's the first step. The next step, Rav Ashlik tells us, is to dig. Ma'adrin. What does it mean, Ma'adrin? Ma'adrin means that we have our root system. Some of us call ourselves spiritual. Some of us call whatever our motivations are in life and what we're doing. And we have many good things that we as human beings are doing. Beautiful, beautiful things that we as individuals are engaging with. But what we're meant to do is we're meant to reveal the root system. We're meant to ask ourselves, what is the fundamental motivation behind why I'm doing this? Let's use myself as an example. I'm a rabbi. Okay. Well, I've got a beautiful opportunity to live in Cape Town. I have, nice job. And, not only do I have a nice job, I get, a lot of perks with the job, sometimes a free holiday. Sometimes, rabbi can have, God forbid, a sense of power, a sense of honor, a sense of higher than that. These are all extremely problematic motivations. If the motivation behind that space is self-centered, if the motivation behind that space is something that is ensconced within the self, the second step is to reveal the source of your roots. Why are you doing what you are doing? Is it self-serving, or is it there to be connected to something deeper? Am I there for myself? Am I there for my own accolades? Am I there for my own self-interest and self-aggrandizement? Or am I there to serve Hashem? Am I there to create blessing in this world? Am I there to be a conduit of energy, of godliness, of infinity, of connectivity into this world? That's the second step. The second step is to question the initial motivation or the motivations behind what you are doing in life and why. And you know what's so scary? Most people have no idea why they're even living. Most people can't actually come to a deduction and say, you know what? This is my raison d'etre. This is my purpose. This is what I am motivated in my life to do and why I'm there to do it on a deep intrinsic level. To make sense of what your roots are, and that is what it means to reveal the root, dig a hole and peer into your roots. The third step is miyablin. Miyablin means to prune, means to cut off the defects. Now, what it means to cut off the defects is the following. The way that the defects present themselves is they stick out of themselves. So if you look at a tree, a beautifully, a hedged tree, it's all in check. How do you know where to cut? When the leaves start coming out of their space, where it starts to grow in the wrong way. Sometimes it grows in a really problematic way. Now, the way to understand what to prune off, the way to try and recalibrate and understand, wow, this seems to be a very, very, very problematic space for me, is the step of pain. Because if you are in an environment, I was on a plane just now to Israel, and Baruch Hashem, on the way back, I was on a plane and the 2 seats next to me, no one was sitting there. So I could stretch out, sleep there. That was only for the first 4 hours. And then I had to go on another plane and that was full. But the first 4 hours I was able to sleep. But imagine that second step where I was sitting next to people and, I'm a pretty tall guy, I've got long arms, spread out, my legs. Now I'm trying to spread out, but I can't. It creates a sense of pain, creates a sense of constriction. The third step is, where in yourself are you experiencing a constriction because you are trying to expand and express and pull yourself out, stretch yourself out? What is stopping you in that space? Now, a lot of the time we have erroneous experiences of expansion. We have erroneous space where we say, oh, wow, look, I can expand into this and I'm going to feel so much stretching out. No. You know why I think they place all of these things on the plane? They give you all these different movies to search and all of these different, these are all food, not that it's amazing food, but experiences of false pseudo forms of expansion. Because you're stuck for 12 hours, 26 hours if you're on the way to Australia like I was 3 weeks ago. That's a really constricted space. So they give you these pseudo experiences of expansion, but at the end of the day, you're stuck. At the end of the day, you don't want to live in your seat on a plane, no matter what films are showing, no matter what plane food they're serving you. And in life, on a deep level, our soul and our essence is something of an infinite nature. And if we are not experiencing that infinity, if we are not experiencing that stretching out of our own infinity, we're experiencing pain. And the third step is, where in our lives are we experiencing pain? I'll give you one example in my own life. One of the ways that I would relax, after, sometimes stressful engagements, switch on, maybe tap into a series on Netflix, see what I can, switch my mind off with. And I started to discover that instead of switching the mind off, which it did initially, I started to experience a sense of constriction, that internally my soul was trying to expand into the infinite, was trying to tell me something, was trying to speak to me, but I was just saying, shh, let me just, no. Eventually I came to the deduction, this is actually really unhealthy, that what I'm using this for is a false sense of expansivity, but I'm not giving my essence the opportunity to expand. The distraction of one's phone, the distraction of all of the entities around us that create this false sense of expansivity. We need to learn to cut off. And what I did was I cut off. I said, I'm not watching series anymore. I'm not watching these things. These aren't entities that need to be engaged with. And that's the energy of pruning. The final 3, mefarkin. Mefarkin is to strip off the leaves. Stripping off the leaves is the energy of one's actions. The leaves, as we know, is the byproduct of activity, as opposed to the root system of one's internality. Now, sometimes we place an overemphasis on our actions, on our leaves. And sometimes, as I mentioned with the fig tree, or it was the guava tree, it broke because there was too many leaves as opposed to the trunk. What we need to understand in our lives is activity is important. Doing good things is important. There needs to be an inner space of fluidity and presence and being that needs to be inculcated into our lives. And the final 2, covering one's roots with dirt. What one's roots with dirt represents is, again, your spaces of spiritual connectivity. But what starts to happen is when you have this spiritual connection, your roots start to pop out of the ground. And those roots popping out of the ground represent, hey, look at me. Look at my spiritual nature. Look at how fast and how intense my shockling is in shul. Look how religious I look. Look how holy I am. Look at the activity that I'm engaging with. No. To be an internal person means you have to cover over those roots with the dirt. You need to humble yourself, that you can't be lost in the accolades of your spiritual self, because that's not the purpose of it. And the final one, ma'ashnin, is to fumigate. And what the Kabbalists reveal is on our trees, insects start to come. We had a lot of caterpillars on some of our trees in the shul or Sameach, in the Eden garden. And it's a very dangerous space that can completely destroy a tree. And what ma'ashnin comes along to represent, on a Kabbalistic level, I won't go into the depths of it now, but the word ashan, to smoke something, we're not talking about smoking something, as I know many have deduced in Cape Town, but the word ashan is oilam. It stands for ayin, which is oilam, shin, which represents shana, and nun, which represents the space of naaseh. And what this represents is three things, is your place, your time, and your actions. But what we need to understand is when our place, which is what we strive for, when our time, which is how do we guide and dictate our time, and the presence that we have in the moment, and the nun, which is the naaseh, the activity that we engage with, when it is lit with the flame of the Torah which is represented with aura, which represents light, which represents the space of fire and flame and heat. And that is our source, and that is the source of smoke that gets rid of the insects. The insects represents negative thinking, problematic thoughts, confusion that start to eat away at our trees, start to, God forbid, destroy the foliage, start to destroy the energy within that. And we need the ma'ashnin. We need that energy of the Torah. We need the energy of the learning and the study of Torah as we're doing tonight. And we need all of those spaces of time, of place, and of activity within a context of heat from the Torah to be able to create a healthy infrastructure. So thank you, my friends. And we'll give you the opportunity if we can ask any questions.
So, Shmuel, I'm going to rush along. I want to just thank you. I think this is a beautiful lesson at the start of this year. And I also think it's a beautiful metaphor for how we need to pause and look internally and externally and ourselves and our lives and our environment. And you know, it's a way in which to take stock and see how we can actually behave differently and act differently. And I loved, you know, with the recognition that there's the head and the roots and this almost interaction and integration that we as individuals need to do at this time as we sort of look to what our garden needs to look like in this year, and how we need to be purposeful in sowing our seeds and cultivating our relationships and our purpose and our meaning. And I mean, I can go on and on in terms of different ways in which you've given us some tools to start interpreting what it is a manual. To bShvat is almost a guideline that we can use in this way to start looking internally and looking at ourselves as we go into this year. So it's really been beautiful to listen, and I think it was almost a process of meditation and mindfulness as we stop to pause and really unpack things in a way that is novel and has such beautiful meaning. So thank you very much. It's always wonderful to have you on Midrasha Melton. You come with an open heart and an open mind, and you make us think differently about how we show up. So thank you very, very much for that. I'm going to quickly
So
move
comment.
on.